Good evening. Welcome to the Wareham Planning Board meeting of Monday, October 21st, 2024. The time is 6 p.m. We are in Multi-Service Center, room 520, and broadcasting over Zoom and through Wareham Media. I'm going to begin by calling the meeting to order and a roll call, starting with Mr. Baptiste.
Baptiste, yeah.
Jane Gleason here.
Julie Moran here.
Sam Corbett here.
And the chair, Carl Schultz, is here. I'm going to quickly go, just a couple of changes on the agenda. The public hearing for the town meeting article bylaw amendment for accessory dwelling units will not be held this evening, and as a result, it will not be on the warrant for the town meeting. And then the only other change right now is we had some business for me to sign invoices. I won't be doing that tonight. Okay, so moving on. First order of business, we have 3 sets of minutes to review and accept: September 9th, 2024, September 23rd, and October 10th. They came out late today. Have you had a chance to comment on them?
I did. I had a couple of comments. Do you want to hear them? Or do you want them? Okay.
No, not, just
Some typos or some clarity.
typos, don't read typos.
No, this was clarity in a couple of sentences.
Okay, so typos we'll deal with,
And
not on the
this
record.
was a typo.
Okay, go ahead. So can you just, what are the changes you'd like to ask, or clarification you'd like to ask?
On
So Jane, go ahead.
On the September 23rd meeting notes on page 1, down toward the bottom, it was really just the clarity of the sentence was not very good, and I've got a new sentence written out that's the same content, it's just clearer.
Okay, so we'll,
And
we can amend them as you've got written.
do you want me to read it?
Yeah, we'll just read the amendment and then, go ahead.
So the amended sentence is, Member Gleason said that in light of what their town attorney had said with the consideration of a 2-lot subdivision, the cost of the poles went from 1% to 20% of the value of the lots, and she was going to vote in favor.
Okay.
And then she said she hoped the neighborhood would come together to be involved in a resolution of ownership of the utility poles. And then the other change was,
Which number was that?
that was number
Item.
2,
Item
down
2.
toward the bottom of page 1.
Okay.
And that was, at the end of that sentence,
All right,
was
so-
really adding in
So
ownership. of the
get that to Julie, and then,
Yeah, and then the second one was on page
same September 23rd?
4, same notes, on page 4, item 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, fifth paragraph. It says, Member Gleason said that regardless of whether she thinks it's necessarily true or not, it may not be a fact.
Okay.
Changing it from a bunch of negatives that was hard to
So,
keep track of.
Jane, if you could
Yes.
read those over,
Yep.
that would be
All
good.
right. Does anybody have, is that just the September 23rd? That was if you remember, a long meeting.
Yes.
I proofread these, I didn't pick up on that, so.
And then, page 6 of the September 9 meeting notes, item 6, it should say AKA instead of ask Jennifer Kramer in parentheses in the first line.
Okay. Perfect.
Should that be Jennifer Carter? Should it be Jennifer Carter?
It says Jennifer Carter, and then in parentheses, it said ask
Also
Jennifer Kramer.
known as.
But it should be AKA instead of ASK.
All right.
So
That's- I missed that as well.
Yeah, it does say Jennifer Carter outside the parentheses, before it.
I missed that.
Yeah.
Okay. That's it?
That's it.
So I'm looking for a motion to accept the minutes of September 9th, September 23rd, and October 10th as amended.
I'll make that motion as amended.
Second?
Okay, motion by Sam Corbett, second by Julie Moran. Mr. Baptiste?
Jane Gleason, aye.
Sam Corbett, aye.
Julie Moran, aye.
And the chair votes aye.
Just a point of clarification. So are we going to amend these, and I should stop by the office tomorrow and sign?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, that's,
We'll have to figure out how to get them amended, or we'll just include her sticky note.
okay. I'm not going to assign them, is my point, until we have the correct version.
Okay, well, we'll have to amend them.
Yeah.
We'll have the Word copy, so.
Okay.
Okay. Next item of business. One of the things that the planning board has been looking at is we have several solar projects whose decommissioning bonds expired, have expired, and we've been working with the developer. Borrego Clearway is the representative that we're working with to get those reestablished. Now, the status right now is the bonds were all renewed at the old values.
Right.
What we have is a position that we have a new standard for setting the bonds. So we're trying to schedule the next meeting for October 30th.
I saw that.
I can tell you that the bond values on those 4 projects are all around $180,000 compared to what the standard would
Right.
be under the NREL standard. I can also state that the applicant does not accept using that standard, and that's what we're deliberating on at the moment. I will assure you that we'll listen to what the applicant says, but I will not make any independent decision without bringing it back to the board. The applicant also requested to not come tonight until we actually have that meeting, and I said, sure.
Yeah, I read all that.
Yeah. So I just want to make sure everybody heard that.
Well,
So
why do they think they're special?
I can't answer that because
I
I
know,
haven't
Carl.
spoken to them yet.
So we're gonna have to bend over backwards on that one, Carl?
No, we're not.
And Carl, I guess,
Let's not deliberate
Okay.
that until.
yeah, sure. My question is, are they looking at other existing standards out there? Do we have any knowledge of that?
They want their engineers to come up with
A number, okay.
another approach.
Okay.
I did draft and send out for comment to my legal minds this morning, my justification for our approach.
Yes.
And I think we have a good justification. My wording needs work,
Yep,
but I've got all the bullet points
Agreed.
Plus, every single other person has agreed to it.
since we brought it up, yes.
Right.
Okay, so that's where we're at on that. Is there any other discussion or deliberation? So I'm not going to make any decision, Mike, once we've had this meeting with the applicant, and I have requested that the attorney, town attorney attend because they have their attorneys there. I will not meet with them if our town attorney is not there, if their attorneys are there. But I am not going to agree to anything. I'm not the board. I'm just going to try and represent our position, and then we'll bring it back, and you guys will get to deliberate.
Okay.
Any other question?
Nope.
Okay, so there's not much else to talk about there. We're shooting for October 30th.
Okay.
I'll keep you abreast of that. Next item is a lot of good news. As you know, the planning board has been working very hard for the last several years to continue to improve the zoning bylaws and to continue to improve rules and regs, which we're going to talk about later. So 2 good things have happened. The town gets 40 hours of consulting from Serpide. I'm going to let Julie talk about this, but I'll just summarize it. So the select board has voted that the planning board may use those entire 40 hours, and Julie will talk about ideas for that. The other thing is we applied for and were awarded a one-stop grant of $98,000 with $10,000 matching from the town to, I'm going to say, let's just use the word broadly, rewrite our zoning bylaws to best practices today.
Just update them.
Yeah, whatever, we're gonna,
Yeah.
we have to go out to bid for a consultant, and we had 2 preliminary bids before we wrote the draft, and the money, they thought would cover the work.
Good.
But once we write the statement of work and all that, we'll come back and review that. But the good news is, as those of you who have tried to continually read our bylaws, they were developed over time, piece part, and there are sections of bylaws that are inconsistent with other sections, that are conflicting with other sections. We're going to try and make it better, as well as look at what other towns have done that could be considered best practices. So, Julie?
Yes, we submitted and actually Serpent had recommended that we consider the One Stop for Growth application. It was not something that was necessarily on our radar. But really, the focus of this grant is for communities that are looking to accelerate growth and development. And we were, part of the process was a very lengthy application about our vision, the community, the needs. We had a lot of help in putting the application together from planning office, from town administrator, from the select board. And I think that our application was very strong. So we were very excited when we learned that we kind of shot for the stars. We really said, what's the maximum that we can ask for? And we went with that. And we were very excited to find that we rewarded $98,000 grant. And then part of the process was the town will also do a matching of 10% of that amount. So as part of the process, we were asked to get proposals from 2 different consulting groups that do this kind of work, and we were able to do that. But what we now are going to proceed to is the RFP process, an open process. We're going to make sure that we craft carefully the proposal to make sure that we cover all the different needs we have around the zoning bylaws, because as Carl mentioned, we have inconsistencies. We also have some outdated bylaws that we really need to bring up to the community in a form that makes it much easier for developers, applicants, the citizens to understand and work within. And so we're excited about that. Part of the focus will be making sure that there is a lot of existing case law and statutory requirements to make sure that those are all incorporated and that the bylaws reflect that. So it's an exciting opportunity, I think, for us to really bring forward a very sound set of zoning bylaws. So we're very excited about that. As far as the Serpent hours, there are 40 hours that we can use with Serpent. They have a tremendous amount of experience in helping communities in many different areas. We're looking at and some of the ideas that have been put forward was updating the master plan. One of the obligations of the planning board is to create a new master plan on a regular basis. I think
5 years.
every 5 years, and we are behind, let's
Well,
just
we're
say.
behind getting started. We're not
Yes.
behind finishing.
Correct. So and then other suggestions was a business handbook. Folks who may want to come and open a business here, do some development, a business handbook, cultural district development, where there is a lot of federal and state money. If we could create a cultural district, like cities like New Bedford has done, a number of communities have done that, which brings in money, kind of supporting to the onset community, looking at the development that they've been able to do recently. So those are just a few of the ideas. I think we'll be moving forward, talking further about that, about how we might use those hours. So all good news on both fronts, I think.
Has the select board agreed to the 10%?
Yes, that was part of the application
That was agreed to.
at the time
upfront.
of application.
Okay,
Yep.
awesome.
Yep.
May I add something, Carl?
Sure.
This is a bit of a wish list. I think this is all fantastic, just wonderful that this is happening and that there's money that's been sought after, and looks like we've got the money. We've been awarded the money. So the seed that I'd like to plant is to think about how we could orchestrate having perhaps the consultant who writes the bylaws continue on a yearly basis with some sort of, whether it's a retainer or something, but have some pocket of money that we could pay them to help us with updates to the bylaws, because I having been involved in a rewrite once and seeing vestiges of what we wrote many years ago still in place, but changes made to it that were, seem a little bit hurried or just not so seamlessly conceived, and so they don't fit into the framework of the original bylaw. So it gets to be messy as subsequent changes are made over and over again. And I would like to see that somebody, whoever's making the changes, not coming up with the changes, but how they're inserted into the document is done by somebody who really understands the document. And I think that the bylaws should be a living document.
Yeah.
Things change. You know, look at what's happened with solar, for instance.
Yeah. We're having a hard time keeping up with the law.
Exactly, and I think that if we can have our document keep up, then we won't have to swallow this big, it won't be like a snake eating a...
I don't know, Mr.
Big deal.
Buckland is on the line. To the point that you raised about document management, I do believe the town is considering eCode 360, which is a tool
That would be
that
fabulous.
is designed for exactly the thing you mentioned. Ken, do you have any more on that? I know Derek mentioned it in passing.
That's still in discussion stage right now, but it obviously is a way to keep track of the bylaw and changes.
So if we could move these in lockstep forward, we get a new bylaw and we get a tool that would, and it's not just for zoning bylaw, it
Well,
would be
and-
the town bylaw, all bylaws.
I think that's lovely to track the changes as they happen, but I think it's also about how you interweave new thoughts or new bylaws into the document.
Yeah, well, one of the things about eCode 360 is each paragraph, section, subsection is its own entity in the database, and it tracks changes
Yeah,
at
and that's
that level.
fabulous.
Yeah,
but-
so I'm
but-
just saying,
Yeah.
somebody needs to continue to read for synthesis and
Yeah.
consistency.
One of the things I found was there was a placeholder for something to go into the old bylaws, and instead of placing it in that spot, it got tacked on the end. So it's things like that that I'd like to see not happen.
Well,
That's because the town for the last 40 years has been putting Band-Aids on. When you
Right.
react to a situation.
Mike, can you make sure your mic's down?
You react to a situation versus, thinking of the future.
Being proactive.
thank you. Any more discussion on this point? Any questions from the vast audience? Okay, thank you.
Jennifer, you sure?
Moving on to the next item, which is the topic of license renewals, which we put on the agenda last week. Just an update, at the request of the board, at the last meeting, I did send a notice to the select board that we had concerns about compliance with the special permit by Walmart. We got a reply from the select board saying they have it under control, thanked us for our time. But it's our job to continue to, any board, we're supposed to be solicited for lots of applications. And I think one of the improvements we can make is, particularly with the ZBA, we're supposed to offer input on all, well, not all, but the relevant ones,
Most.
important ones. So we need to keep our eye on that as well. And we need to increase cross-board collaboration. So, yeah, if there's something we think the select board should know, we'll,
Well, it works. I mean, a couple of years ago with Chipotle, I
Yep.
mean, they had massive violations. We were on them requesting the dumpster to be moved, the corral to be built, the wires to be covered, da-da-da-da. The select board held the license, and Chipotle went, oh, goodness, why'd they do that? Next day, they had carpenters, electricians, landscapers all over the place. And it worked. They know we're watching, they know they have to do what they're supposed to do. I think that's the reason I brought it up, is it should be just standard, we're gonna do all these licenses. And it's not just any, and I'm not talking about any particular, but there's automotive, there's package stores and so forth. And I know we're shorthanded. If that's the case, we need to hire another person to help all.
Bless you. I do note that there's another issue with dumpsters over next to Chipotle. They've got
Right.
their helter-skelter, hither, thither. We need to push for where that letter is that you were sending to Mr. Bowen.
Yeah, it got sent, the email got sent to Ken, and I thought Ken was,
So, Mr. Buckland, did the letter from the planning board that was drafted by Jane when she was clerk get forwarded to Mr. Bowen for comment? And if you don't
Not that I'm
remember it-
aware.
Huh?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay,
No,
so
it did not.
Jane, could you send the draft to Ken again? And
yeah, well, it's actually in the meeting notes that we were just.
For the record, you've agreed to do that, Jane?
Agreed to,
Send a letter?
Well, to resend it to,
Resend it.
yeah, the request is that we have Attorney Bowen look at it before we send it to Mr. Turner. So let's dig that up for the records and just send it.
yeah, it's in here,
On.
what date the email was sent. It's October, it's this one.
All right, so we'll dig it up and resend the request to Mr. Bowen for comment.
August 8th, 2024 was when the email was sent with the letter attached.
So can you just dig it up and send it to
I
Ken
will do that
again?
right now.
Thank you. Any other discussion on, and the select board did assure us that they meet with relevant boards.
Well, Judy made that comment. I think it's a great one.
Yeah, so,
It's what we need to do.
Yep.
okay. All right, any other discussion on this? Okay, moving on, we're going to move into the public hearing section. We have an application, 9-24 Rick Valente preliminary subdivision, 1031 Pierceville Road, map 98, lot 1031, 6 lots on 7.5 acres. This is not a public hearing. Preliminary subdivisions do not require a public hearing. And are you here to speak to that matter? Can
Good
you,
evening. For the record, now Zager from Zenith Consulting Engineers.
can you state and spell your name for Patty up to the microphone so she can hear it?
Niles Zager's Nyles Zager Zager from Zenith Consulting Engineers. Where would Mr. Chairman, where would you like me to put the board? Is there a spot?
John, where's the best place so that the camera?
People usually just put it at the side and at the table there. So,
Thank you.
yeah, no problem.
How many folks do we have on the tens out there? 5? Okay, so if any of them raise their hand, they can't see it or can't hear, have them just raise their hand and let you know, and we'll try and zoom in on the... So before you start, I have a couple of comments. So have a seat. So first, I wanted to thank, so I did read this off as 9-34, which would normally be on the town website. However, this is also being migrated to the new Viewpoint open.gov system we had talked about, and it can be found as Plan 24-5 with the same name that I read. And you can search for it using the map and lot reference. Or if anybody can't find it, I'm sure Josh or Ken can help them, or you can drop me a note and I'll send you the hyperlink. The other thing is I want to thank you for uploading it. I don't know if you personally did it. There is one of the things, and it's going to be a problem for tonight, is we didn't find it. Most of the board members didn't find it till Sunday. So we haven't had a lot of time to review it. The other thing is, and Josh has got to check this for me, I couldn't find all of the materials, so he isn't sure if the parts of the application I was looking for aren't there or they're blocked from me. So we'll look for that. So what I'd like to ask is tonight, we'll let you make your presentation, and then we'll probably need to do a continuation.
Oh, understood completely. Yep.
So thank you.
Yeah, no problem at all. So again, Niall Zager from Zenith. So typically, we file these Form Bs, as the planning board knows, in order to give the board, an idea of what might be coming. And it also gives us time to, and a chance to ask the board questions, and any concerns or, questions that you might have, without too much public input, at that time.
This is to help you kind of narrow in on a design.
Exactly. So that's why we did this. So the plans that you see before you, preliminary in nature, as they're stated, not all the information's there. When we come before you with a definitive plan, there'll be a lot more information.
Absolutely.
That will be provided, a stormwater report, a lot more calculations. It'll be a much larger plan set, more details, things of that nature. So I just wanted to make that clear to everyone.
I do have, when we get to the part where I have some questions about things that I didn't see in there that would help us have that dialogue. I have a question. Did you establish a 53G account for this project? Were you asked to do that?
We were not, no.
Okay. Because then we could get the town consulting engineer to advise us.
Okay.
So Ken, we should talk about getting that established so Mr. Cordero can take a look at it. He's an engineer, obviously. I'm an electrical engineer, but I'm not a civil engineer, so.
Understood. Yeah, I mean, typically, again, I don't know how this board works. I've never been before this board, but I've done these in
Great,
many
well,
towns.
welcome. We're glad to have you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Most of the towns I work in, this is more of just a conversation
Yeah.
piece, and then, the definitive plans will get sent out for review. Because again, there's not a lot to review here other than just general information.
Right.
But again, however the board sees fit, I'm open to for sure.
Yeah.
Am I good to make my presentation?
Oh, sure. Yeah, no, because it's a little less formal, hopefully we can just have a dialogue.
Absolutely. I'll give you some information, probably about a 3-minute little brief overview of what the site is, and then I'll obviously be happy to answer any questions that the board has. So again, this is a preliminary residential 6-lot subdivision off of Pierceville Road. It's known as map 98 lot 1031, and it's approximately 7.5 acres. In lot size, and it has 200.59 feet of frontage along Pierceville Road. The topography or elevations that you see on their existing topography is generally fairly flat, except for where the pond is, ranging from anywhere from elevation 73 down to 63, which is at the pond elevation. There is a reservoir pond on the northeasterly side of the property that's being serviced for the abutting cranberry bogs. The lot is not located in the entire lot's not located in any flood zones, which is all noted on the plans. It's not located in any natural heritage endangered species areas. It's not located in an area of critical environmental concern. It's not located in any Zone 2 wellhead protection areas, public water supply areas. It's not located in any outstanding resource water areas. And it's not located in a Zone A to a surface water supply. So those are just kind of your general environmental impacts. Those are more towards conservation, but they are brought in. I do bring them up because some of them do impact planning purposes.
You'll
So
find that this board is very interested in environmental impacts, particularly to groundwater and the aquifer and the flows to the Wewianick and all of the.
And stormwater management, all of that.
So those will be things. Have you filed an RDA with Concom?
no, we have not. So I actually spoke with Josh about that. He requested or suggested, once I get the ball rolling with this, that we meet informally with the commission to discuss the project.
Right, you would get the same kind of advice from them. Are there conservation issues?
Of course. We know we're going to have to file with them. There's no question about that, but I hate to go file a definitive filing with them, a notice of intent or what have you, and there'd be major changes. It just doesn't make sense. So typically what I do is I like to come in front of the planning board first, because you're really the first step, and then we'll talk with the commission after that.
Yeah, and one of the processes you'll find, if you stay, Julie will talk about it later when we update our rules and regs, is a preliminary design review, which those kind of questions, even though we focus on preliminary design review from a planning board perspective, meeting with Josh to identify are there going to be concerns from conservation would facilitate the whole process. We don't want to get to your definitive and find out there's like hurdles that we hadn't thought about.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and that's the purpose of this for sure. So I completely agree. So as far as, and this is also the other thing I didn't mention about the existing lot, is it's in the MR 30 multi-residential district, which requires a minimum of 30,000 square foot lots with 150 feet of frontage. And there's other criteria to that, but that's just generally what's there, and it's all on the plans as well. As far as the proposal goes, I'm not going to get too much into it, but it's a six lot, single family residential proposed road. All lots that are proposed have that minimum 30,000 square feet with 150 feet of frontage, as I had noted. And they also, on the plan, you're going to notice that there's a 150-foot diameter circle that's shown on the plan. That's to comply with zoning as well.
Right.
So that is shown on the lotting sheet. The lots are going to be accessed by a 733, roughly 733-foot-long paved roadway. We're proposing which I believe complies with your regulations, is a 24-foot wide roadway with berms on either side.
All right, great. And you're going to need to get the fire department to give us, when we get to the end, but that'll...
I actually, and that's a great point. That's one of the things I would like to do ahead of time, because there isn't a way of us to pull things even a little bit further away from the conservation area, which is something we want to look at doing. But we would have to talk to the fire department about that.
Right.
You know, there's things like I've done in other towns where you, instead of you have the property line or the right of way would be circular in nature, but you do a T turnaround, like a hammerhead. It works really efficiently for a fire department typically. And what's nice about it is you can take your driveways, and you can extend them off of it. So there's less pavement, there's less impact, stormwater wise and what have you. So it's just a suggestion. It's something I've done in the past, but it wouldn't comply with your regulations. So that'd be something we'd have to talk about, moving forward, but it's something I just figured I'd bring up.
And the only issue, they'll talk to you about their truck, and as long as their truck can do it, they're usually pretty accommodating.
Of course, yeah. So what we typically do is we have a template program that we can run they'll give us the size of their apparatus, and we can run a model to show that it does work and does, we do mainly for site plans, but in a subdivision road, in the road, they obviously can maneuver around, but the turnaround we would show them that that would work for them. So that's something that we would look at.
You're only doing, you didn't file for a site plan review, right?
No. I just meant that
if you'd
No,
like.
I mean, typically we will, what I was saying is typically the fire department portion of it we would do during site plan review.
Yeah.
The lots are going to be serviced by on-site septic systems and a public water supply, which is a proposed water main. There'll be a proposed water main down the road. We've already, as we provided on there was perk tests done for all the lots, performed by my office and witnessed by the Wareham Board of Health. It's all beautiful sands and gravels out there, which is nice. So it's, as far as site work goes, it'll be very minimal. Drainage, that we're just showing it general in nature right now. But what we will be doing is we'll be using deep sump-hooded catch basins, drain manholes, so water will flow from the gutters into those structures. Then those would be conveyed into an infiltration basin, which we're just showing in a general manner. That basin will be sized to handle a 100-year storm event, which is required by stormwater management to ensure that no impact of abutting properties or any of the resource waters will be impacted. So that's something that will come at a later time, but generally speaking, that's what we would do engineering wise. That's really about it. I know there's probably a lot of questions. I'm happy to answer any of them, but thank you for your time, and I'd be happy to take your input at this time.
Thanks for coming out. questions? I have my list.
Just one question. I notice you have all of the owners, with the exception of one, owner unknown, that looks like they're in a butter. Is that to be determined? Looks
It's
like?
from the, that's from the assessor's office, so it's unknown, it is
So,
unknown.
Okay, we haven't done any research on that at this point. Okay.
Yeah, it would be based off of the assessor's information, that's all we could get. I mean, unless there was a title search done, and even then, good luck.
I'll have to figure that out. Okay. I don't have any questions, really.
Jane?
I did notice a couple of things that are really pesky. On Lot 3, the building shown, and I know it's diagrammatic, it encroaches on the setback. You might want to push that back a little bit.
Is it?
Yeah. On the fourth sheet.
Thank you.
The front of the house on Lot 3. The very end.
You're absolutely right.
Yeah, we don't,
I mean, there's plenty of room to move it.
I know, it's diagrammatic. All the other ones are sitting, and I know I'm being
Wait
pesky.
for the
Yeah, we
title.
just we'll have to see lot circles
Yeah,
when you
yeah.
do the definitive. And
When we get into the definitive, we're gonna grade the lots out. We're gonna show, in general manner, because we're gonna be looking at the drainage. We have to make sure that there's no low areas that we have to account for separately from where the basin's gonna go to ensure that there's not gonna be any flooding there, or any just areas that are getting water that shouldn't be. Again, like I said, it is a really sandy, which I know there's parts of Wareham that are not, but typically in my experience in 25 years here, or in the area, is this very sandy area, which is great for drainage and septic and what have you, which is great. But we still can't, we want to make sure that we're not going to have any, low areas that are going to be an issue down the line. So we'll look at all that in the definitive part of it.
And my next comment is really pesky.
That's okay.
The locust plan is at 1 to 200, and I think we call for 1 to 2,000 or somewhere in that neighborhood. But we're looking for, I think it said somewhere half a mile
Aerial map.
outside and an aerial map. It just helps us to see sort of what the land uses are
Yep.
adjacent in the area. So it doesn't have to be quite as large scale as this, it could be smaller scale and give us more context.
Okay, yeah, what's gonna happen is I can do it on a separate, if it's okay, I could do it on a separate plan, but what's gonna happen is, it's gonna be almost unreadable. You're almost not gonna be able to read it. I've done it in the past. That's double what a USGS map is, because we had looked at that. So I can try to get something on a larger scale. I would actually want to do it on a larger scale, like put it on a 24 by 36 plan, and try to show you, but I'll take a look at that. Is that in the,
The aerial photograph helps us
Should be
with
in the rules and
land
regs.
use stuff
Of
and
course.
giving us more context, lets us see a little bit farther afield.
understood? Yep, absolutely.
can I take a time out? I missed two important steps. First, I have to swear you in. I missed that. It's a new procedure, and
That's new, that's great.
Yep. Can you raise your right hand,
Yes, sir.
stand, and state your name and say that you swear to tell the truth, the whole
My name
truth,
is
and
Niles
nothing?
Zager. I swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Thank you. The other thing, for Patty, I'm going to read into the record, we're looking at a Form B application for a preliminary subdivision plan, and we have a plan set. Let's see, is the plan set? The plan set is dated September 3rd, 2024, and it's Zenith Consulting LLC, and how many pages is it, Niles?
Oh, I believe it's 4.
It's 4.
It's a 4-page plan, and signed and stamped, so for the record, we'll have that as part of the project record. So those were two administrative items I forgot.
Thank you, thank you.
Signed and stamped?
Mine is stamped.
I took this offline. Never mind. There we go.
I have the original.
There we go.
Yes, signed and stamped. Okay, other questions? Mike?
I think, I see on lot 2 and 3, the houses are gonna own the pond. Is that gonna be a problem later on for the bog owners?
There's an easement. That's actually, so the people that, the bog owners are selling this property, and one of the big things is, and that's a great question, there's gonna be an easement for them to own to have access to the bog, because that's obviously a big thing for them.
Okay, but who's gonna control the pond? The landowners or the bog owners?
No, the bog owners.
So, okay.
The bog owners are going to have the ability to access it's going to be through an easement. It will be over the land owned by the homeowners, but it's going to be, so conservation-wise, there's a 30-foot no-touch right here to the pond. That's actually something that was implemented by by conservation, but also by the bog owners. They want to ensure that there's nothing that can be done within that buffer, because they need to protect their asset there.
Yeah.
That'll show up on your preliminary subdivision, or your definitive subdivision.
Correct, it's on the preliminary as well, but yes, it'll be, and that'll be obviously talked about with conservation as well, but it is going to be it was a big thing. When my client that's looking to purchase the land spoke with the sellers, that was one of the first things that got brought up, because obviously it's a big topic for them. They need to make sure that they have control over it.
Because, you know, a lot of projects around Cranberry Box, you know, they have a tendency of putting the property line in the middle of the ditch and everything
Mike,
else.
is your mic on? Is your mic on?
You got to pull your mic.
That'll create a problem later on down the road.
Yeah, of course. Of course.
Yeah, I did have, that's what, I had a question around that. So it looks like Cranberry Bog gravel road on, not on the subject property, but the pond. And really is separate from the Cranberry Bog. It's just a retention basin created, is it a natural pond?
It's a reservoir it's where they reserve the water for the bog.
For the
It's a
bogs.
reservoir
Okay,
pond.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's what I assumed. All right.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's absolutely vital that they protect it and keep it intact and functioning the way it's supposed to as it is now, because otherwise they don't have what they need for their crop, so.
So I assume there'll be an easement for lot 1 and 2, but my assumption is there'll be some significant restrictions around that.
Correct, yes,
Yeah,
absolutely.
okay.
Yeah, that'll be all spelled out obviously on the plans, but it'll be also in in all the deeds and what have you, there'll be all.
Restrictions, okay.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I'm sure Conservation is going to have the same thing with their orders of conditions, if that ever is issued. They'll have their orders of conditions, which will spell out, no touch areas and what have you. That will need to be, once we get into more definitive plans, we'll get into individual site plans that will be filed as well. I'm guessing they're going to probably want some sort of a permanent fixture there, whether it be fencing or a living fence or whatever it may be, markers or what have you, a combination of both. That will need to be, that will need to be discussed with them as well. And I'm sure that will need to be done.
You done, Shane? Not Shane, Julie?
Yep, thank you.
Okay, all right, I just have a couple of general questions. 7 acres, right? How much, is that all treed right now? So we're going to cut down 7 acres of trees?
No, there are trees there, yes. The majority of it are trees, yes.
Okay, so when we get to definitive tree cutting, will be something we want to discuss.
Yes.
It's a concern for the town. We're losing a lot of our habitat. So just be prepared. We'll have discussions.
We'll show the limited, so as part of when we do our plans, our definitive plans, we'll show a limit of clearing. And we'll also, because we need to do that, because when we're doing our drainage analysis, that's one of the big things as far as when you're talking about the surfaces, whether it's woods or grass or what have you, and the types of soils that are there and pavement. That's all goes into sizing that basin. So that's really important. So we'll have a definitive, tree clearing that we feel as though is necessary for the work. Try to leave as much buffer as we can, as much left natural as we can. And then we can discuss that at the definitive stage for sure.
Great. So you did mention in your introduction, there's no priority habitat. There's rare species habitat. Box turtle, red cooter, that will come up as an issue when we have the public hearings. So
Did you say there is a rare species?
the entire town of Wareham is rare species.
Not mapped though.
On the rare species level, it is. It's not a protected. It's not a. I'm not trying to make a. I'm giving you a heads up.
Yeah.
So we want to talk about the impact to the rare species. I'll double check whether this property itself shows up on that layer of the GIS, but
Okay.
in general, the other thing, if you're cutting trees, see if it comes up on the Pine Barrens map, because that'll come up as a discussion point.
Pines Barren, you said?
Pine Barrens, globally rare Pine Barrens.
Okay.
It's a big
All right, thank
issue
you.
in town. Unfortunately, there's no law protecting it, but it's an issue for townspeople. So again, it will become up. So the more informed you are, we can have a discussion. You're not surprised.
I appreciate that. No, again, this is why we're here, right?
Yeah.
We can bounce questions and ideas off of each
Box
other.
turtles, red cooter, all through Wareham, and there's an enormous amount of lost habitat. This is what's going on, but these are issues we got to think about mitigations and impact. For the road ownership at the end, are you planning to establish an HOA?
No, I believe they want to go, they want it to go public.
That you are not going to get this street accepted by the town.
Okay.
Well, I can't say that, but historically, the town, that has to go to town meeting.
Yeah.
It hasn't, the town has not, Mr. Buckland, you can correct me, but the town has not been accepting new streets lately.
That is correct.
And there's no reason not to.
That's not,
You gonna get me going?
I don't want to get you going. I understand that position.
Oh, boy.
So be advised that getting a street accepted in town is a hurdle.
Yeah, okay, understood. And again, that comes down the line, now, even after the definitive, all we can do is, comply with the regulations as much as possible.
Yeah.
And then, if my client constructs it properly, he can petition the town. If not, if he keeps it private, then we'll come back in front of the board with the proper documentation for the HOA, and take that route.
Or you can have individual lot owners take responsibility to the middle of the street, but whatever it is.
Yeah, that would be the private way and what have you.
Yes, yeah. The problem is we have a lot of private ways that have been in town for a long time. The people who live there forever think it's great. New people who buy property, what do you mean the town doesn't take care of my street?
No, understood. I do a lot of them, I understand.
Yeah,
Yep.
so we just want to avoid that. And Mr. Corbett is very emotional about HOAs because they don't work a lot of times.
Well, a lot of the HOAs in town do get plowed.
These are all
intermittently.
issues beyond.
Hundreds of them.
Yeah.
Beyond.
I can identify them.
That's between you and your wife.
No, it's not.
His wife is on this line.
Between me and the board.
Yeah. No, but that's not really a planning board issue. Ownership, all we need to do is ensure at the end of the project, it's clear who owns the street. Okay, so just be aware that in town.
Understood.
And
It's
you're.
good to know. That would have been a surprise to me, to be honest with you.
Well,
'cause
that's
I've
why we
never-
do this, right? So
Of
you don't get
course,
surprised.
that's great.
So your
I can let my
client,
client know,
he could begin talking with the select board. That's a select board issue.
of course.
Or the planning office, Mr. Buckland.
Yes, sir.
But we have not had a lot of success at getting new streets adopted. A couple of questions for Ken. I asked about the 53G account. Now, I know in the past, Mr. Rowley always weighed in, but often he did things as a courtesy. Do we normally get a 53G account for preliminary subdivisions?
No, we don't. You correctly identified that Charlie Rowley was a real boon to the town because he provided expert testimony without having to be paid for it as well, because it was his town that he was concerned with.
Yeah. Do you think it's important to get Mr. Cudero to weigh in? I mean, I don't want to spend other people's monies, but it wouldn't be that much of a review at this point, right?
No, I don't think it's necessary. It's also on a short time frame as well, too. You have 45 days.
Well, not if we continue the meeting tonight, so.
Right. One thing I'd like to ask, though, is in this initial stage, have you seen anything that you want to request a waiver for, such as sidewalks or lighting?
Well, that's another thing. One of the neat things about subdivision and the way our rules and regs are written is the planning board can actually grant some waivers. So there's a call box, the fire department would generally waive that. The street lighting plan, let us know if you're gonna, what your plan is. Do you want a waiver from the street lighting requirement? What else do we normally,
Sidewalks.
sidewalks?
Do you, as far as the street, sorry to interrupt you, but the street lighting, is that something that you typically just like allow a driveway lantern to be put in or something?
That is an option, and then I personally always like a street light at the intersection with the main road, but that goes back and forth.
Okay.
Depending, I'll drive out to Pierceville in the middle of the night and see how dark it is.
But you're, so you're
Very
open to the, the street lighting, you're open to the, excuse me, the,
Driveway lanterns.
excuse me, yeah, driveway lantern, and then, the other waiver that you had mentioned, I'm sorry.
There's a requirement for fireboxes.
Which is
but
not even, yeah,
I don't
that's
think we do
outdated.
that.
This is a-
Hydrants, that, we don't waive hydrants.
Of course, yeah, no.
Sidewalks.
I wouldn't put
Sidewalk,
it,
what are you
Sidewalks,
planning to do for
curbing.
sidewalks and curbing? You said Cape Cod berm?
I mean, that's what we were hoping to do.
Right, I love Belgian block, but nobody ever supports me for Belgian block.
As far as sidewalks go, I'll be honest with you, I didn't know what the requirement was. I can look into it.
There is a requirement, but we
I don't believe
often,
Pierceville has any sidewalks right now, so.
yeah, but we, there's been requirements to sidewalk to nowhere, but
So are you open to no sidewalks?
we want to know, this is the stage where we want to talk about what your thoughts would be.
I would require, honestly, I mean, with a 24-foot wide, a 24-foot wide roadway, typically I would ask for that waiver. But again, that's up, I would be open to the board's consideration on that.
Any, those are the things we typically talk about, right, Ken?
That's right. Those are typical requests, anyway.
Okay, all right, so just prepare a letter following the meeting saying, respectfully, we're planning to request these waivers. Then we have it on the record.
Of course, absolutely. There was another one I was just thinking of that usually comes up.
Well, they
Street
have to
trees.
list the waivers, and the board would have to vote on each one of them to allow them to proceed with the waiver.
Yeah, well, not at the preliminary level, right?
No, not at the preliminary level, but the definitive.
But then you would be aware, everybody would be aware in advance what you're thinking about, yes. So when you come back with the definitive, that's when we would grant the waiver. But
Of course.
just ahead of time, let's make sure there's no surprises.
And you mentioned street trees.
Yes.
Street trees, do we have a street tree requirement? I don't,
Yes, we do.
okay. It's not a question that's ever come up, but.
Well,
I mean,
if you use, you can use the existing vegetation if you don't cut it down.
So that's what we would try to leave a buffer in between the homes. Some of them are going to be, like for instance, there'll be a significant amount of vegetation left along here. Then there'll probably be a significant area here, in between here. This will all be left alone. These are going to probably not have much because of the septic portion of it. But again, we'll have to look at that. We might be able to slide things around and what have you. And then these lots will probably not have much.
Okay, so if you're going to look for a waiver, put that on the list
I will.
and think about it.
The reason why I bring it up, if we're not going to have sidewalks, then that's not as much of an issue. But a lot of times I find when you put the street trees in with the sidewalks, looks great at first, and then they ball up and the roots come up and they upheave the sidewalk, and it's just a nightmare.
That gives the sidewalk character.
Yes, yeah, there you go. It gives a real place for the kids to make their jumps on their bikes.
That's 30 years from now, too.
Yes. And then the other thing is just, I live in the town of Berkeley. I have 200 feet of frontage. I have 2 street trees. They cover up my whole yard, right? I have some buffer left on the sides, but they cover up my whole yard. I wish I could get rid of them, to be honest with you, just because I say get rid of them, I wish I could get rid of one of them. Typically, I find a lot of towns will allow just one, especially with 150 feet of frontage, so we're talking 50 feet less of frontage than what I'm talking.
All right, so come forward, just
Yeah.
what you're thinking. That'll be an issue that we want to talk about in the definitive. Another question, Ken, butter notices for preliminary? It's in the subdivision rules and regs.
There isn't a requirement for a butters notices.
There is or
It
is
says
not?
advertising in the fee schedule.
All right, we got to reread the rules and regs, because I
So-
thought it said it required a butter notice.
So Ken, you're saying that they're not, the preliminary, you don't need a butter notice. Is that what you're saying?
That's correct.
Okay, I'll reread the wording.
Okay, I'll look
I
at it
may
too.
have misinterpreted it.
Yeah.
Yeah, my understanding, Mr. Chair, is that when you look at the requirements of what's required under the preliminary, that is not required. And that's almost the purpose of the preliminary typically, again, I know you have regulations you have to follow, but typically the purpose of this.
Which is why I asked it. I was kind of surprised that I thought I saw it. Okay. Those were my questions. Do you have any other questions of us?
No. So I guess, is the board looking to continue this?
I don't know. We're going to talk about it.
Of course.
How much time do we have left, Ken? This was filed on the 26th of what was the date it was stamped in?
That's stamped.
26th of September.
26th, so we're 4 weeks in. That's 21 days of the 45. What's the clock? I mean, the next meeting wouldn't be till November 4th, which would be getting close to the timeframe. All right. What do the members think about, this is just a preliminary plan? There is somebody with a question, right?
Yes.
I'll come back. Don't let me forget. I'm just trying to, before we take a vote, we'll see who has a question, but think about what you would like to do tonight. There is a clock, so who's got their hand up?
Kathy Pappalardo. Kathy Pappalardo.
Okay.
I'll let her. She's in, she just has to unmute.
Kathy, you have to unmute.
Okay, there we are. This is Nancy McHale, actually. I'm using Kathy's computer.
Okay, hey, wait, before you start, just remember, this is a preliminary review. It's not a public hearing. So with that in mind, you can ask your question.
And I appreciate that. Thank you for taking my question. I'm just trying to figure out how to navigate the new system. And I honestly can't find this plan.
I will send you the hyperlink, and either Josh or I have made a commitment to help citizens get to it. So when I get home, I'll send you the link to the document. But I also offered to do training, and Josh has offered to do training.
I've been on the viewpoint, and I can generally navigate it for other systems. I just can't find this. What would it be called?
You can put in 1031 Pierceville Road, and that should bring it up. Or, and it doesn't come up as 1031 in the system. It might be 0. Or you could put in map 98 lot 1031, and that will also bring you to it.
Okay, I tried all of those things and that didn't seem to work.
Okay, so that's we don't need to hold the applicant up for that. I will send you the direct hyperlink, but also if you'd like, we can have a little session. Josh can have a session and figure out. I know people are struggling with the move to the new system.
Okay. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Just a thought on that. Is there any way, at least as we move through this process, to include in the agenda, which is published?
That is the long-term goal. The hyperlink should be on the agenda item.
Right.
I did request that. It didn't occur yet. Going forward, the plan would be, Nancy, that on the agenda, you should be able to click on the agenda item and it will take you directly to the project, which is what Concom is already doing. So deliberation, what would you like to do tonight?
I don't have any more questions.
Nor do I.
I do, if we decide to move forward tonight, just send the letter so we have it on the record.
Of course.
Of
Is
what
an is an email okay?
Send it.
Of course. Of course.
Send it to the planning office.
Of course. No problem at all.
And then it's just on the record so that 6 months from now or whenever you come back, we all remember.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so I'm looking for a motion, either to approve or deny.
I make a motion we approve.
Second?
Okay, so I have a motion on the table to approve the preliminary subdivision plan identified as 924 Rick Valente, 1031 Pierceville Road, map 98, lot 1031, 6-lot subdivision on 7.5 acres. And in Viewpoint, it's known as Plan 24-5. So I have a motion from Sam Corbett, second from Julie Moran. All in favor?
Aye.
Mike Baptiste is aye,
Jane Gleason, aye.
Julie Moran, aye.
Sam Corbett, aye.
and the chair votes aye.
Thank you very much. Have a great night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You as well.
Yeah, so Ken, it's hard for me to remember what we got from Charlie for free versus what we need to get a 53G account for.
I hear you. I'd like a little guidance in if you want to proceed in the future with Phil Cadero's or input from Allen and Major on preliminary subdivisions.
Right, and also, in passing, I got the impression that you thought there might be value in opening this to a public hearing, which would require a change to the bylaws, right?
Well, I was just looking at the way the regulations, rules and regulations are written now, and that the fee schedule requires advertising a fee to be submitted. So that to me indicates public hearing.
Okay. Oh, okay, it's not that you were requesting a public hearing, it's we need to look at the fee schedule in the rules and regs.
That's correct.
Okay, so that's another improvement for our rules and regs subgroup.
Yet another.
That's the subdivision. Yep.
Yes, yeah.
All right, moving on. Next item. Notice is hereby given pursuant to the State Zoning Act, Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 40A, that the Wareham Planning Board will hold a public hearing on Monday, October 21st, 2023 at 6 p.m. in Multi-Service Center, Room 520, 48 Marion Road, to discuss the proposed amendments to the Planning Board's rules and regulations regarding development permits that come before the Planning Board. Copies of the amended rules and regulations are on file with the town clerk and the planning office. Carl Schultz, Chair. First notice, October 3rd, 2024. Second notice, October 10th, 2024. At this point, I'm going to turn this over to Jane and Julie, our rules and reg queens and queenettes and
Long-suffering.
stars and whatever, to discuss the changes and the reasons and whatever else they'd
Sure.
like to say.
Okay, happy to. I'll start. I want to thank my partner over here, Jane, for contributing so much to assessing what we had done back in February of this year. That was the first set of rules and regulations, but also helping, she and I looking at what has changed, what could we have included that maybe we didn't, are there some areas we'd like to expand on, are there other changes in the statute and practice that we wanted to address. So the rules and regulations are very much a living document. We envision that as time progresses, there are going to be additional things that we brought to our attention. We will come back to you, no doubt, with additions, amendments. But that is, I think, the beauty of rules and regulations and the process we're able to use, because it really helps us to amend in real time rules and regs. As Jane mentioned, the bylaws reflect a different process. So we feel that the amendments that we made reflect some of what we've learned since we originally created the rules and regs back starting last year, coming before you in February. So if I can, I'll just give you some highlights. Obviously, the copy of the rules and regs have been available for citizens in the town to review. So one of the areas that we thought was important is to have a bit of an introduction to help folks understand what are the powers and duties of the planning board, what is their role, and to really list them, which is some of the things that we did around long-range planning, hearing on zoning law proposals, administration of subdivision, special permits under the zoning bylaws. And then we also thought it was important to explain why it is that, how are these duties applied, how are these powers and duties applied, and really to support the town in its growth, preserving clean water and air, and all of those things that are really important to the town. And we as stewards, in some respect, are charged with making sure that we look at those as we move through the process. It also talks about some of the planning tools we've developed, subdivision rules and regulations. These rules and regulations talks about further into the document the design review process, which is at the preliminary stage before a complete application is submitted, along with a review process by the planning board. We thought it was really important for folks to understand that before you're submitting what you think is the final application, let's have a second look at it by design review board, if that applies, and to the planning office to really help an applicant understand what are some of the requirements and what can they expect as they pursue through the process. So we made sure that we covered that in a more definitive way. And then we also thought it was important to talk about the statutory authority. Where does the power and duties of the planning board come from? And the sections of the law. And also to remind people that notwithstanding rules and regulations that apply, there are federal, state, local laws to make sure that an applicant who may not be familiar with the process looks at all of the applicable rules and regulations and incorporates them into the project. The other area we talked about and spent some time on is the contents of a complete application. What does a complete application look like? What does it contain? What if it's not complete? And we talk about that an application that is not complete means that there will not be a public hearing schedule, that a timeline for a automatic denial or approval will not start to run, because we really wanted to make sure that unlike some of the challenges we had in the past, to try as much as we can to have the applicant give us all the information that we need up front before they come before us. We feel it will drive efficiency, have hopefully a lot less continued hearings, and really make it easier for an applicant to understand what our expectations are. So that was another area that we spent some additional time on. And then we talked about within the application, what are some of the areas that we need covered. So we spent quite a bit of time and ink on that, if you will. And then we talked about the process for filing the application and posting it, understanding that we now have an electronic process, so we spent some time on that so folks understand that there is a posting process electronically that you need to do. The next area that we spent some time on in the amended regulations was the organization rules for conduct of business by the planning board. We talked about what are the various roles of the chair, of the vice chair, of an associate member, so people understood what the role of the members of the planning board were and what the expectations were for a new member. We thought it might be helpful to have a bit of a guide for a new member to understand what does the process look like, what is my role as a member of the planning board, to make sure that you are reviewing all the documents that are posted before you come to a meeting. Taking advantage of a site plan visit to the site, or a site visit to the site, to understand the project, to understand how it fits into the land that is going to be used for the project. We also made sure that Conservation Commission was brought to everyone's attention as really the first process to coordinate with the planning board, rather than coming before us and then down the line going to Conservation and finding that we have some changes that have to be made. So we tried to do that. We tried to, in some of the amendments, about the process for town officials. What is the time by which we need to get documents get the whole plan and all the supporting documents in front of the town, different town departments, and how long do they have to review the documents and the plans and come back to us with any comments. And then we talked about the various types of meeting, a public hearing, a possible executive session if there is a subject that needs to go into an executive session, and how that comes about and how that is published and handled. And then we talked about quorum, valid votes, scheduling and submission deadlines. We committed that every year we will provide a calendar for the citizens to know when are the the typically scheduled hearings for the meetings, the 2 Mondays a month, and then how do special meetings come to your attention, and then to also provide a very important aspect, which is what are the submission deadlines. That is another way that we feel that we can make sure that we're being more efficient, and that includes one of the amendments talk about to an applicant that the Wednesday before the meeting, if there are any additional documents you need to submit, we need to see them before that Wednesday deadline, because it's problematic when an applicant comes before us having just submitted documents and expects us to prepare to be able to talk about those. So we thought that was important to make sure that folks understood that. And then we talked about, we made some changes on the conduct of the meeting and public hearings for our citizens to understand how is it that they should approach us, how should they present materials to us, how should they contribute to the hearing, and what ways can they contribute to the hearing? And then any witnesses, we talked about and included a provision that allows us to, for a witness to appear before us and then be testifying under oath, which in some situations we may be using that as one of our procedures as far as a hearing goes. And then we also have really put together in one area the process to waive rules. We've heard about that tonight. So we talked about 2 different types of waiver. One is waiver of a application provision, application documentation, and then actually waiver of our rules and regulations or conditions for approval. So we put together in a separate section what that looks like and what is the expectation of an applicant who seeks a waiver from us. So there are a whole series of standards and requirements that we ask them to comply with if they are seeking waivers. And then we also expanded a bit the ethics and conflict of interest provision around recusal, what that looks like, how a member should be looking at ethics and conflict of interest rules, and seeking counsel, our town council's help if they need it, but otherwise talks about the process of recusal, because there seems to be been some confusion in the past. And then a couple of new areas that we've spent some time on recently in hearings is findings of fact and establishing a record around applicants and members of the public who would like to assist us in creating findings of fact, making it clear that as far as the planning board is concerned, we welcome findings of fact, but it does not necessarily mean that we are going to accept all of them. We're going to look at each carefully. We've called out a bit of what it should look like as far as submitting evidence. We have some more thoughts on that we may be including.
We have a document.
Right, that we're working through, that we would think to attach, to give members of the public, our citizens, a bit of a roadmap on how they can help us, help the town by submitting some of the great evidence and great comments that they come forward with. So we feel that was really important to help our citizens in these very important hearings that come before us on a regular basis. And then lastly, we spent some time at the end of the document on the administration side around the guarantees, both on performance bonds, but also on solar decommissioning surety bonds and what that looks like and the standards that we are including in the rules and regulations in order to calculate decommissioning amounts. I don't know if you want to add anything on that, but.
Yes, right now, we have been operating using what we've identified as the NREL standard. It's a technical publication, and we've codified it in the rules and regulations, and I am in the process, anticipating some questions and concerns, of drafting a justification for using that standard, which I'll share with the board, and then after we've gone through legal review, it'll be made public.
Right. Agreed. And then finally, we talked about the use of outside consultants and how that process works, and really it would depend on the size, complexity, certain issues that may come up in a project where we could engage an outside consultant, use what's known as a 53, Chapter 40, Master General Laws, Chapter 44, Section 53G, to establish an account with our treasurer for an applicant to deposit funds based on an estimate that our consultant, the consultant that we would engage, would prepare, and that money would be used to support our review of the application, review of certain conditions that might arise relative to that application. And then we also really have a bit of a catch-all around technical review fees that maybe after the project is being completed, how we might engage outside consultants, may be able to give us assistance on some of the technical issues. And that really, we feel is really important. We've found is very helpful to the town, and quite frankly, we have found that applicants are willing to work with us on that process to make sure that all of our questions are answered by a professional that we have identified. So that's the highlights.
Great. For the record for Patty, so she gets it, could you read the date and title of the document into the record?
Yes. Site plan review and special permit, rules and regulations of the Wareham Planning Board, and it will have a notation of the public hearing and at some point that it was filed with the town clerk.
Thank you. Discussion? Questions? I do, in support of the process that we're trying to move forward on regarding findings of fact and format for documentary evidence, I do have a document which I'll hand out to the audience, copies thereof.
Do you have enough copies?
But anybody who's in the field who wants a copy, just send a note to the planning office and I'll make sure that it gets to you, please. But
I'll take these out.
But what we're trying to do, and again, right now, these are, people have asked, how do I do this? What does it look like? So I sat down and I wrote a template. And it's a guideline at this point. We're not going to beat you over the head with a requirement. But And I've offered to several citizens to sit down and go over this and review it with them.
We might think about that as an option.
Right.
Because I think it's so important that we get citizens' feedback and that able to submit in a way that we can use. So,
Workshop type of situation.
yeah,
I've offered
Yeah.
to do that, and.
yeah, I think that's a great idea,
And
Carl.
Good
actually,
idea.
just without getting ahead of myself, Community Land and Water Coalition agreed to partner with us to hold a work session like that.
Yep.
So I'm working to try and get that scheduled.
Good idea.
But I have copies of, this is really how to format and submit evidence. But if you format and submit evidence using these guidelines, I sent it to all you guys, you should all have copies. It would then flow very nicely into a finding of fact. So I'll put them on the table, and then anyone, as I said, who's not here, who would like a copy, just send a note to the planning office, and I'll make sure you get it. Any other discussion, questions? No, hearing none from the...
It's hard to add any content to,
Well,
really,
yeah, but yeah, she's so thorough.
but I can find more typos as I go.
Yeah.
The more I look at
So
it.
if there's no comment from the board, this is a public hearing. John, are there any citizens who want to speak?
There are 4 in the meeting, none have raised their hand.
Okay, before we get too far ahead, I'm looking for a motion to open the public hearing.
So moved.
Retroactive.
Yes.
Second.
All in favor?
Jane Gleason, aye.
Julie, go ahead.
Oh, sorry, Julie Moran, aye.
Sam Corbett, aye.
And the chair votes aye to open the public hearing retroactively. I did read the notice.
You did.
You did read.
You did.
You did read it.
Okay.
Oh, I think you opened it
So the
anyway,
public,
but-
is anyone from the public, John?
Not at this time.
Okay. Ken, any comment from the planning office? Oh, wait, yes. Before we go, why don't you raise this and ask Ken what we want to do with that?
So, Ken, is Ken still with us, I think?
Yes, I am.
Okay. You had sent out the draft rules and regulations for LIP projects.
Yes.
Were you looking for comments or at this point?
Well, one of the things I think we want to do is run that by the author of the original sections of the zoning bylaw and see what her reaction to those are. If that makes sense in terms of what she was trying to accomplish with those sections of the bylaw.
So is this for the
Okay.
rules and regulations, or is this a bylaw?
Bylaw. But Ken, zoning bylaws, which you have sections 830 and 840?
Correct.
Okay, so this is a companion to that. Is that what you're saying? Rules and reg relative to the implementation of that those two bylaws?
That's correct.
Yeah, that was my understanding. Okay.
All right. So your request is that the planning board reach out to Brenda Ekstrom, or is that what you're saying?
Yes.
And what, invite her to a meeting? That would then need to be a public hearing if we're going to talk about the rules and regulations.
Correct.
That's correct.
All right. Well,
And it's probably a new public hearing as well, too, because you didn't advertise.
yeah, we didn't even really have
Section.
time to look at it. So
Okay.
the process would be then, if I could summarize what I think your recommendation is we could close this public hearing. We could make a decision about this round of amendments. Once we're done with that, we could then reach out to Brenda with a copy of this and say this has been proposed, and ask for her comment in a new public hearing.
Correct.
Okay. All right. That's,
You want a motion?
well, wait, I'm just,
Just a question, Ken, are you interested in comments on this before you submit it for the new public hearing on this? My point is
Sure,
I have
think
some
it'd be
comments. I'm happy to
worthwhile
send them
if
to
you
you.
and Jane were to look that over and make it compatible with what you have already put
Yeah,
together.
that's part of
The
it.
rules and regulations.
Right, okay.
So we'll do that
That-
first.
Which we could
Yeah.
do. as
Before
part of the
public
As
hear-
part of the drafting process.
Right.
So we'll do that before we even notice Brenda.
Yes, please. Thank
Okay.
you.
Okay, hang on. Okay, all right. Look for a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Second by Mike Baptiste. All in favor?
Aye.
Jane Gleason, aye.
Julie Moran, aye.
Sam Corbett, aye.
And Carl Schultz, aye. And just before I take a vote, Patty, for the record, another document was a template for submitting evidence dated, I don't have the, I'll get you the date. It's on the bottom of the document. So that's just another document that we delivered. It should be on the bottom, my revision date. If not, I'll get it to Patty.
Carl, we just went off air. John,
John?
we just went off air.
Okay. Patty, oh, she's not there, so.
Yeah, hold on. It's Verizon.
Yeah.
Zoom is still working, so we're still recording for Patty. I will get you the date of that document and the name of it, but that was another document we used as part of this process. So we've closed the hearing. Let's wait before we take a motion. Please note for the record that approximately, what time, Sam?
7:26.
7:26, the planning board was informed that the communications, I think the TV channel went offline, so we're pausing.
Sorry about this, one sec.
Paper tonight. So Carl.
Okay.
Okay.
You have the Word document?
I think that the minutes were in Word.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
If not, I think I have the Word, so just call me in.
okay.
So Patty, just for the note, Julie's going to make the amendments to the meeting minutes that Jane wanted, so you don't have to do that. So we'll file the amended minutes. Not Jane. Did I say Julie? Or I don't know.
You said Jane.
I said Jane. Julie, I know who I
Yes,
was
right.
talking about.
Making the changes that Jane wanted.
Right, that's what I was
Yeah, I know.
trying to say.
We got it. Still down.
Thank you. The meeting is back in session at 7:28. All right, so we closed the public hearing. We didn't hear any discussion from the board. There was no one speaking from the public, so I'm looking for a motion regarding these rules and regulations.
What would you like to do?
Well, I would like to approve them, but I don't
They-
want to put words in your mouth.
Okay, make a motion, we approve.
Second.
So motion by Mr. Corbett, second by Mr. Baptiste. All in favor?
Mike Baptiste, aye.
Jane Gleason, aye.
Julie Moran, aye.
Sam Corbett, aye.
And the chair votes aye. So the rules and regulations as amended will be in effect and be posted. We have to deliver them to the clerk.
Right.
Ken, there's no soak period, right? Once we get them to the clerk, they're in effect, right?
That's correct. They're in effect immediately.
Okay.
So Ken will take care of that?
Sure.
Okay. Yes, thank you. Thank you. We just need to get him the final document.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay,
The final of this, yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Is there any
I've got a couple little
okay.
typos?
typos.
No content
no,
changes.
no
Yeah.
content.
So
just
Jane, if you could
typos.
send those to me, because I probably have the same couple that I found, but if.
All right, so
send it to
Ken,
me,
we'll get
I
you
will
the
get it
draft.
to Ken.
We'll get you the draft, or not the draft, the final
The final,
for posting with the clerk.
correct.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next item on the agenda. Is Josh on, or Ken, do we have any applications pending?
No pending applications at this time.
Okay, so that, right now, I believe the November 4th meeting is somewhat open. We could use that for planning board business. Also, I do remember that in speaking with Attorney Bowen, although the select board doesn't meet on Mondays, there's a need for a joint executive session, so we ought to be talking about when that gets scheduled as well. Oh, you weren't at that meeting. He wants to have a joint executive session regarding one of the matters that's being disputed.
Yes, I understand completely.
Okay. All right, so there's nothing before the board right now. So if anyone on the board now has ideas on some internal business items that you'd like to take care of, we can use some of that time on the November 4th meeting to move forward some of our things. We could talk about findings of fact, we could talk about submitting evidence.
Yeah.
It could be an open public meeting, not necessarily a public hearing, but let me know if there are things that you want to talk about that are on your mind about the direction we're going, the changes we're trying to make. But I'd like to talk about any and all of that, but in an organized way. So just drop me a note and I'll work with the planning office to get the agenda set for the 4th. The item regarding payment of invoices, they're not ready, so I'll have to go in tomorrow morning, and then I'll have a report for the next meeting of what invoices were signed. And Ken, do you have, I know we've been asking just for an update on the 53G accounts. Do you have any, I know Sonia's working on stuff, but any thoughts or comments?
Yeah, I went through the list of the 53G accounts and the performance bonds that we have out right now and made recommendations, but I did that about 6 months ago. So I would suggest that I update it with the new list of 53G accounts and performance bonds and get that to you for review.
A
What I did
possible
was I went
topic for
through-
the 4th if we're organized and ready for that.
Yeah, that'd be great for the 4th. That'd be actually a good time to do that.
Okay.
Now that we've opened the question of bonds, I have a couple of bond questions. Have we heard from the Bay Point applicant regarding the Phase 1 bond that we've requested, and I haven't heard anything?
No, we have not heard from them.
So do we need to take action?
Yes.
If you want to be entrusted to make the best decision for the town, I think you have to take action at this time.
Okay, so we'll have to engage Mr. Bowen on crafting that, the demand letter.
That's correct.
Okay.
That'd be a good idea.
Okay, I'll work with you. We have a bunch of things to talk to the attorney about. Perhaps, is he on the agenda for Thursday? Is he in on Thursday?
Well, Thursday, he's probably going to be busy with town meeting coming up and
okay.
strategizing the town meeting with the powers that be.
Okay, so perhaps the following Thursday, we need to talk about the Bay Point bond. We need to talk about a pending applicant who's got a concern about how we've structured the public hearing. So we need to talk to him about that. And we've got the NREL, excuse me, not the NREL, the Clearview meeting. So we
On the
probably,
30th, yes.
we probably need to meet with him before that.
Also, Carl, I mentioned this a long time ago. There are a lot of numbers on the 53Gs that are literally $3, a dime, 86 cents, very small numbers. Is there some way that we can write off certain amounts?
I don't believe the planning board can at all.
Well,
We could make a recommendation.
Exactly.
Yes.
can we ask
Well, let's-
Attorney Bowen about that?
Yeah, let's let Ken include his recommendation with his update.
And the
Okay.
treasurer who holds the
The
funds.
treasurer, other people have to.
Involved.
weigh in on it.
But
Right.
they need a recommendation from us,
I
because they've never received one to date.
I don't think they've been waiting for one either.
Yeah, they have.
Uh,
I spoke to them today.
Well, then why didn't they let us know they were waiting for one?
I won't get into it right now on a personal matter, but let's talk.
Okay, great. First I've heard that they're waiting on us to take an action because we're waiting on the town to take action.
Okay,
it's-
we'll talk about it.
Yeah, great. Next question. You did send me a note, Ken, about Mr. Warren looking for release for his performance bond, which is great, but we need to get Phil just to give us a report.
That's correct, and we also need to have the check deposited and clear before we give it back to him.
Oh, we don't even know if he gave us a good check?
No, we don't.
Oh, we haven't deposited?
Okay, so good, let's clear that up. And I looked at the ZBA agenda. Mr. Warren is going for a variance for parking. Really, shouldn't that come back as a modification to the special permit? Because parking,
Well,
is-
I think you probably want to see the variance first before you can adjust it, because you can't adjust it without going against the zoning bylaw.
wait, how is it
So
against
that
the
was
zoning
going to
bylaw?
appeals
The
to-
whole,
to issue the
re-
variance, and then you can modify.
wait, no, I have
as
a
you fit.
question.
It's a modification.
The bylaw, the number of parking spaces was established by the special permit.
Well, it's actually the separation distance from the location of the parking to the site.
Okay, but it's also for more parking spaces, right? All of
That's
which is a
correct.
great idea, but I'm just, you know me, I get hung up on process. So he should go for the variance. There's a couple of other things that we need to get modifications for, right?
Yes, there are, and that'll be coming as part of the bond review as well.
Okay, great. It was a wonderful session today, a beautiful place. I hope we can, I'm not trying to be difficult. I'm trying to be procedural.
That's correct.
Thank you. Okay, are there any other open bond issues? Oh, we're still waiting for Mr. Andrade to establish, he's looking for a bond to release his lots, so that's all on him, right?
Yes, the ball is in his lap, and we're waiting for him to respond.
Okay. I'm not aware of any other bond issues. All right, so has Mr. Warren requested us to send Phil out to just do an inspection? Or do you need to do that, or how do we want to do that?
I already mentioned it to Phil, and he has to schedule his time out in the field to review it.
Okay, great. But let's get the check deposited to make sure it clears.
It's not in my hands to do that at this point.
You've turned it into the
Treasurer?
to treasurer.
Town treasurer.
Yeah.
That's right.
Okay. So I'm not going to vote to release it until it gets deposited.
Or we just hand the check back to him if he's.
I am not going to do that. No, I'm not.
It's not the procedure.
That is funky. That means that I never know that he actually put up the bond.
That's correct.
Okay, this is funky. Yep. Okay. All right, I don't have any other business.
Motion to adjourn.
Second,
All in favor?
like Baptiste, aye.
Gleason, aye.
Julie Marie and I.
Sam Corbett, aye.
And the chair votes aye. The meeting is adjourned at 7:39.
Right.